Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast, the show that brings you the latest insights, thought leadership, and stories from across the global mining industry. In today's episode, we have Beth Borody, who is the founder of Maven, a platform putting real capital and real decision-making power into new hands, particularly women, in a sector where access to opportunity has traditionally been tightly controlled. Last time Beth was on the show, we talked about why women should be investing more in mining. And this time, we're going to talk about what happens when you stop asking for a seat at the table and start building a new table altogether. We're going to get into resistance, capital flows, ESG, reality versus theoretical, and whether changing who controls money might change mining itself, and obviously a lot more. So, Beth, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you so much, Rob. I am doing so well. I'm so excited to be back here. As you mentioned, we spoke just about a year ago at this point when we were really talking about the need for women to step into investing in the mining industry and the role women play with the wealth transfer. And it just feels like the natural fit to come back a year later and speak about Maven and building this mining company that is founded by women, made for everyone, and really looking at how we do mining differently here in Canada and then hopefully globally. So I feel great about this conversation and very happy to be diving in with you again.
Yes, certainly. Well, for those that didn't listen to the previous episode, obviously I encourage you to go back and listen to that. But I wonder if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your career, maybe from the early days and working your way through to where you are today. So I'll hand it over to you.
Yes, absolutely. So my mining career started just over a decade ago when I was actually working in West Africa. So I had my own company that was operating in Ghana, West Africa, and we were really looking at taxation methods for national level governments and local level governments and how taxation flows happened within rural areas. And being in Ghana, that's obviously a heavy mining country, we were inevitably running up against mining communities and mining companies wondering how they can have a bigger impact and how they can ensure that the taxes that they are paying go back to the communities that they are in. And so while doing some work with them, I found myself relocating back to Canada in 2015, I guess at that point, and really wondering more about the industry and more about what the opportunities were in the mining industry at large. Around that time, a mentor of mine reached out to me who was a CEO in the Canadian mining space, and he said, hey, we need to get you more involved in this industry, people who think like you, who are different, who are not necessarily from kind of an engineering or a geology background, but more from that ESG side and sustainability space. I'd love to kind of make introductions to you. And so long story short, I went to all of these offices on Bay Street, downtown Toronto, met with all of these C-suite people, some of them very confused as to why I was sitting in front of them, others really kind of curious as to what my skill set had to offer, but inevitably ended up with New Gold, based in Toronto, which is a mid-tier gold producer in Canada. I started out consulting with them as they were going through a bit of a transition with acquiring assets as well as disposing of other assets, and very quickly got brought on full-time. And I was with New Gold for just about 6 years, going from consultant to executive and holding VP of sustainability as my last role with the company. And in that time, also kind of accidentally started this company called Femina Collective, which really was about how women show up in the industry and making sure that as young and ambitious driven women, we have opportunities to really make sure our voices are heard in the industry. So as Femina was growing in 2023, I stepped away from New Gold at that time and I went and worked with Femina full time. I also wanted to get a better understanding from the standards and regulatory landscape just for my own knowledge. And so I worked with the Initiative for Responsible Mining Assurance, leading their mining department for about a year and a half before really diving in full time with Femina growing it to this global movement that it is today. And in that time, over the last year and a half to 2 years, we really saw that women's roles in the mining industry were not just to be employees, but really to look at the whole system of mining, from who owns mining companies, how do people invest, how do women invest, how do we make sure that we are at every single table in the industry and that we are just where everyone else is. And we started down this investment journey, which a year ago we launched at PDAC. We launched our women in investment courses. We had women run through our courses numerous times last year. And about June of last year, we were approached by a project generator out of the US. And they said, hey, would you be interested in looking at some of the projects we have, or some of the women that you know who want to invest in mining, see if they would be interested in it. And while we were having this conversation, totally expecting to introduce this company to some of the investors that we had met, there was a moment where I looked at Peggy, who works with me at Femina, and we said, wait a second, why aren't we doing this ourselves? Why aren't we actually building a mining company that's based on the values and ethos of what we've built with Femina, and really leverage the fact that we know women are eager to play a role and play a much more substantial role in the industry? And that was the beginning marks of Maven. And so over the last 8 months, we've really leveraged what was built with Femina and continuing to grow that network and community. And we have officially launched, as of January 6th of this year, our own mining company called Maven Exploration that is, again, founded by 4 women, looking at how we raise capital different, looking at how we set projects up differently, looking at what our due diligence processes are. And I think the really fun thing about that is that the project generator that kind of spurred on this idea for us is NV Resources out of the US, and they are now our official partner and currently seeking out projects for us in Manitoba and Saskatchewan here in Canada. And we are working very closely with them on a weekly basis as we look at what our first project acquisition is going to be.
Great story. And obviously, last time you were on the podcast, like you said, just over a year ago, you made obviously a strong case for why women should be investing in mining. And obviously, Maven feels like the next chapter. But what actually broke the system that made you realise education and advocacy wasn't enough anymore?
Yes. So when we started down this whole idea of getting women to invest in the mining industry, we started with really big ideas. And we started with this idea of thinking about what would happen if women pooled their funding together and they invested in something bigger collectively. And because of security rules and laws and regulation here in Canada, anything that was happening in that realm, women still needed to be accredited. They needed to be qualified investors. Obviously, we want to protect investor interest, all of those sorts of things. And as we were going down this road, we thought this is still really inaccessible for people. And there's still so few female women who are accredited investors that we needed to do something more. And so we kept kind of chipping away and trying to find research. We went to EY, we went to McKinsey, we went to Deloitte. We said, can you give us the research you have on women investing, and particularly women investing in the mining industry? And all of them came back and said, we don't have anything. We would love to know what women do in this space, but we actually don't have any research in these areas. And so we thought, well, we need to make a case study and we need to figure out how we get women to understand about the industry at large, but then also how they put money on the table, which really led us to the first steps of really looking at the systemic barriers women face when it comes to their own financial independence, understanding investing, and then layer on what women know about the mining industry, particularly if you don't work in the mining industry. And so we started our full education courses to really start bringing in all of those tools. So we have 2 courses that we offer. One is really working with a partner of ours, Nicola Wealth, to really understand, how do women understand their finances? How do they look at budgeting? How do they look at building an investment portfolio? What's their risk tolerance? All of those sorts of things. And then we couple it by bringing in mining experts to talk about what is the mining sector? Why should we care about it? Why is it important right now? What are governments saying? All of these pieces. And then our second course really is a deep dive into mining 101, just getting as many women educated on the mining system or mining sector as possible. And so we knew as we were building this out, we had women, we had CEOs attending this course, we had women from completely outside of the industry, but the threads that were the same between all of them were just a lack of understanding on how to manage your own money and how to look at what you want to invest in and make those decisions for yourself outside of just your managed accounts that may be kind of more long-term, lower risk. And so when we were looking at Maven, we thought we have this whole group of women who are so eager to get into the mining industry. They're so eager to invest in something new and different. And we don't see mining companies, particularly junior companies, working out in the open. We don't see them building in the open. We don't see them having conversations in the open. And there are rules around that, whether you're public or private and all of those types of things. But there is still this idea that anything that's happening in the mining space is kind of behind closed doors. And if you're not in the industry, you're not going to hear about it because it's too complicated for you to understand. And we really want to turn that on its head and say, no, we don't think so. We think that everyone should have access to mining. Mining's happening in everyone's backyard, especially here in Canada and the US, and people should know about it and have the opportunity to engage in it. And so we really went to our groups, and as we were building Maven, we said, we want to do this. What do you think? Do you think this would be something you'd be interested in? And we just kept getting a resounding yes from women every step along the way, saying, yes, keep going. Yes, this is what you need to do. And so we really are taking that concept of, does mining need to be done quietly and behind closed doors, or can we do it out in the open, and can we do it loudly and show what we're doing every step of the way and bring investors in, particularly investors who haven't been in the industry before or who are women, and bring them into an opportunity that they may never would have had otherwise.
There's obviously lots of investment platforms and lots of obviously mining conferences out there. Obviously, we met at the Resourcing Tomorrow event end of last year, and I know you've just been at the Indaba event. What is Maven doing that either of those worlds are willing or able to do?
Mm-hmm. I think our biggest difference is the accessibility we are trying to bring for mining. So we are trying to make it so commonplace for people to understand what we are doing, why we are doing it, and that mining is something that they can do. I think a lot of these conferences that we are at, one, we're talking about women and investing as much as we possibly can. I head to SME next week down in Salt Lake City. I'm the keynote speaker for the women's breakfast of SME, and the whole conversation is around why women need to be looking at this industry and need to be looking at it from an investment perspective. I want to make clear, I'm not an investment advisor. I'm not a financial planner or financial advisor, but I do believe that we have not given women the education and the tools to understand the sector and understand the roles that they can play in it. And that's what we really want to change with Maven, is really making sure that that is on the table. And so that'll be happening at SME. PDAC is right after SME, when we all are going to ascend on Toronto for those 5 days together. And we are hosting our first in-person Women in Investment workshop through Femina. And we have both myself and Alicia Milne from Q2 Metals, who is another incredible female CEO here in Canada, coming and talking about why is it important for women to know about this industry? Why is it important for women to look at mining as a potential investment opportunity? And so we, again, are really wanting to make sure that we are making it accessible, doing it out loud, and not just doing it at a booth, not just doing it with other mining colleagues, not just doing it in the convention centers, but really taking the conversation outside of those doors and welcoming other people into the industry who just may not have known about it before.
Mining capital has traditionally flowed through tight, male-dominated networks. I suppose, be honest, what resistance have you faced trying to open up that system, and where is there still being some pushback?
Mm-hmm. We face resistance every single day, being told that this isn't going to work, being told that we're giving women the wrong advice. We shouldn't be educating women on this, that mining is too complicated and too risky of an industry to try and share with people. I sat down with an executive, a C-suite in the Canadian mining space a few months ago and shared this idea of Maven. And they looked at me almost in shock and just said, why would you do this? Why would you ever encourage someone to look in the mining industry? No one makes money in this mining industry. And I had to sit back and just kind of laugh, knowing what that person's salary was, what that person's bonus was, how that person invests in the mining industry as well, knowing full well they're making loads of money in the industry right now. But there was this kind of just automatic response of, it's too complicated, don't bring new people in because it's just going to lose them money. And now we want to be very clear. We know mining is a risky investment. We know, especially the earlier stage you get in the mining process, the riskier that it gets. And we're not shying away from that. And we're not avoiding telling people that. But this whole idea of we can't bring new people in because it's too risky, I think is just fear-based. It's fear-based of what if other people start coming in and take my piece of the pie? Then what happens? And the fact of the matter is we need mining so badly right now, and we need so much more mining right now that pie is only going to get bigger, and we only need more people coming in and trying to take a slice of it. And so as we get that resistance of being told that we shouldn't do this, we had a partnership fall through earlier this year with one of the big 5 banking institutions here in Canada, and it was all around being too niche, being too risky, being focused on the mining industry. And again, it's like this industry is so enormous. Like the fact that we are being told that we are niche when we are an industry that makes up an enormous part of Canada's GDP, that is a huge piece of our own backbone that our government is supporting so heavily right now, just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to get this resistance when all of this momentum and all of this need in the industry is also happening. So as we get that, we say, thank you very much for your feedback. Thank you very much for the conversation. We take things that we know we need to learn from or things that we may need to pay attention to, but we also have to be almost a little bit delusional in our own sense of like, we have to do things differently because we can't keep going to these conferences and having the same conversation about how we are strapped for capital, how institutions aren't funding junior companies, how we need more mining and we're not going to get there because we don't have the people, we don't have the resources. We need to stop having that conversation and saying, okay, then what are we trying and what are we doing differently? And what we are doing is radically different than what other companies are doing right now. And so we know we're going to continue to face resistance, but we're also just like, then just give us time. Just watch. And yeah, we're going to make mistakes. Yeah, things aren't going to work out exactly how we want to, but we are so confident in the base that we have and the foundation that we have through what we built through Femina, what we built through our women in investment courses, what we built with our own knowledge of the industry, that we think that there is a lot of merit in what we are building now.
You're very obviously intentional about Maven being female-led and female-owned. Is that a values decision, or is it a performance decision, or a risk decision? And what does the data actually say?
Yeah, maybe a little bit of all three, to be very honest. I think right now, I think we haven't had this disproven yet, but I think we are the first fully founded female mining company in Canada, where the full founding team has been women. And we knew right away as we start going out for investment, as we start going out for our project acquisition, that we can't just say that we are only for women. We want to be for everyone. We want to show that all of these conversations around diversity and inclusion are what we want to embody and what we want to share. So that means when we're going out, we did our first friends and family session yesterday where we were able to like share all about Maven and share about our next steps. We had just about 50 people join that call, and it was almost a solid 50-50 split of men and women who were on that call. We want to include everyone because we know trying to just say that we are only women and we're only going to work with women and we're only going to take money from women and we're going to be so female forward is actually just almost the same thing as discriminating against everyone else as we have felt as women in the industry being discriminated against. And so we knew right away that wasn't our intention. Going back to that risk and resistance question that we get a lot of snickers around being fully female. And, oh, this is just a play. It's just a marketing ploy. It's just a story that's being told. But we also have, between the 4 of us founders, we have such diverse backgrounds and our talents and our skills that are so complementary to each other and not competing with each other, that when you take that whole the response that we get a lot about, just find the best talent. We believe that the 4 of us are the best talent for this company with the backgrounds that we have to move it forward. And we do believe from a values perspective, we want to show what happens when women take the reins and step into this. We don't want to be the only female-founded mining company in Canada. We don't want to be the only female executive team in Canada. like, we want that to be either replicated, or we want to show how diversity can really take a hold, because we know all of the data points to a more diverse team, a more inclusive team is better performance across the board. You have better ideas, you have better execution, you have better profits, and that's what we're working towards. Our foundation just happens to look different than 99% of all of the other mining companies by having 4 female founders right at the front.
A lot of people talk about responsible mining, but Maven is putting real capital behind obviously projects. How do you stop ESG from becoming a box ticking exercise when money is on the line?
hmm It is one of our values. And I will say one of our founders is Allison Koppel. And she, in my opinion, is one of the strongest sustainability and ESG professionals in this industry right now. She's worked for all of the major mining companies around the world, not all, a good 6 or 7 of the major mining companies around the world. She has led sustainability programs. She now runs her own consultancy as well that she has had for the last couple years. And her whole ethos is keeping people and planet center to everything. And when she came into Maven and when she agreed to be a founder, that was her premise, was I will do this so long as we continue to keep people and planet at the center of everything that we do. So that means she puts it in this really great way that we aren't going to be chasing chaos. We aren't just going to be running to put drills in the ground as fast as we can to get results. If that means that we haven't done the proper due diligence around community engagement, looking at environmental impacts, looking at where we're going to be purchasing and putting our projects and doing our exploration and doing our activities, if it doesn't start with those people and it doesn't start with where are the people on the map. Don't just give me the geology. Don't just give me kind of the landscape of what's around. Give me where the people are. And that's how we start embedding things right away from day one to keep that there. And we know that any investors that come on board with us are going to need to buy into that as well. They're going to need to buy in that we're probably going to look like we are operating a bit slower, that we're taking our time, that we're doing things a bit more methodically. But that's because we don't want to have to retrofit later down the road social issues or environmental issues that come up because we just ignored them at the front. We know there's a lot of movement about this in Canada. Depending on where you're operating, the whole idea of consultation coming to the forefront. It kind of used to be, purchase, explore, consult if you have to. And now it's really consult, participation with whatever stakeholders that you have, purchase, and then start your actual activities in partnership with those individuals. And that's really what we want to test and really want to figure out how to make that work and always have that at the center of our activities.
If Maven succeeds or loses, which I don't think it will, what parts of the mining ecosystem gets disrupted or even exposed by your model?
Well, first, I appreciate that you don't think that we will lose. We also hope that we don't lose. But again, we know what space we are in and we know what the risks are. But our whole idea is really to show if we are successful, one of the things we will be successful in is what our investor makeup is, who those individuals are, who those people are. And if it goes the way that we plan, those people are going to be people that are probably going to be more women, that are going to be people who are very values aligned, and are going to be people who have not invested in the mining industry before. If we can open that door for other people, particularly women, because let's not forget the wealth transfer happening with women right now, where women are going to hold 50% of wealth within the next 5 years in Canada, the US, the UK, any kind of Western nation. That is over $1 trillion that is being expected to trade hands, and women are going to hold 50% of that. I always look at it from the fact within the Canadian mining industry, we're about $30 billion short in capital for what we need to kind of get more drills in the ground, get materials moving, all of those sorts of things, which is a fraction of what that wealth transfer is. And so if we are not actively trying to show women want to invest in mining, they're investing in Maven, they're coming in through our investor profile, that's what we want to disrupt. That's what we want to show, because if they can get in with us, they're going to be interested in other projects. They're going to be interested in looking at what else is happening in the country, what else is happening on the mining scene. And we want to show that rippling effect that, again, mining isn't just for the elite. Mining isn't just for the 12 men here in Canada that generally make decisions around retail investing. It can be for anyone, and it can be an opportunity for people to diversify their own portfolios. So I think that's a huge disruption for us to show how money can flow into the industry in a very different way and what the face of that money looks like and who that is. And then I think our other disruption is how we partner with communities, how we start from day one, bringing communities in an equal partnership way that isn't just consultation, that isn't just an IBA, that isn't just kind of traditional forms of partnering, but is really how do they have a seat at the table? How do we make sure they have equity? How do we make sure that they're taken care of as well? Because once we can start showing that model, it becomes very easy for people to replicate and the expectations simply change. And we know that mining can adapt really quickly when we need to. They just need someone to go first. And everyone wants to be, they want to be the fast second. They don't want to be the first, but they want to learn from the first, and then they want to be a fast second. And we are willing to take the risk of being the first and showing we can do this differently, and we're confident that our results will be good at the end of the day.
If you zoom out, what does the mining industry look like in, say, 10 years' time if Maven works?
In 10 years' time, I hope that Maven has multiple projects. I hope that we have caused a little bit of a tidal wave in the industry here in Canada and then beyond, and that we have shown that different is possible, that we're seeing new talent come into the industry because, again, it seems more accessible. It seems like an industry that people are interested in and don't feel intimidated by. We're seeing more money flow into it. We're seeing people demand, even with their managed accounts, that some of those accounts go into commodities, that investments are happening at a higher rate, and that we see more people replicating the model that we have. Again, we don't want to be just the owners of this model. We want to show people that it can be done differently, and we want to see more junior companies progress. We want to see more materials coming out of the ground, but in the right way with the right backing, and that mining becomes just a total dinner time conversation in North America, where we are currently going to be established. We want it to just be that accessibility factor, and that Maven was the one that kind of tipped the scales in that way.
And lastly, in concluding, what's the sort of outlook for the next 12 to 18 months for Maven?
For Maven, our first objective, obviously, is to look at our project acquisition. So working with MV Resources, with Cherie Leedon and her team, as they look for projects for us to be able to acquire, doing our first investment rounds, obviously, and getting our first investor base behind us and in the door. And then really looking going into 2027 and 2028 is really what those then next activities look like. What are the next steps we need to do with these projects? How do we progress them? How do we work with communities? How do we show in real time what we are doing? And again, our whole premise is that we will be doing this very loudly and very publicly and showing the steps that we are taking. But within the next 12 to 18 months, it is that acquisition of projects and getting into that operation of what is next. How do we progress these to the next stage?
Beth, really appreciate time. Thank you for obviously sharing your story, telling us about Maven. It's something exciting. We've obviously been speaking previously, and obviously I'm full behind what you're doing, and I think it's great to hear. If our audience obviously wants to find out more, wants to obviously follow the story, you're also going to be attending PDAC, which is in a few days' time. So how can people follow the story, get in contact with you, and what social media platform channels are you on?
Yes, absolutely. The best way to follow Maven is to follow us on LinkedIn under Maven Exploration. People can connect with me directly, Beth Borody, as well as any of the other founders. We have Kelly Ward, Allison Koppel, and Peggy Bell. We all will be at PDAC, so we are more than happy to chat with people at that point. We are also on Instagram through Radically Maven that can also be followed. And you can go to our website, mavenexploration.com, sign up for our newsletter, see all of our latest news updates that are coming out, and participate then. And I just have to say that I hope that we are back here in a year from now, being able to share the successes of what the next 12 months have been and continue this story and trajectory that we've kind of started together.
Yeah, well, you're more than welcome to come back on. And all those details will be on the show notes accompanying this episode for easy access. So all the best. See you at PDAC, and good luck with the venture.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob.
No worries. Thank you. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed that episode. As always, really appreciate your continued support, and please share this episode far and wide. Obviously, the mining industry is made up majority of males. So why don't you share this with your partners, female partners, and other females within the industry, so they can get an understanding of what Beth and Maven are looking to achieve. So thank you again for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.